So, Gabriela, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, Luke. It's really a pleasure being here.
Great. So you just recently arrived in Kelowna a few years ago, I think, right? Tell us when you came here and how you ended up in our city of Kelowna.
I moved here November last year. I moved here in November, and my other two kids moved in December. So we moved from Montreal. And how did I end up here? Sometimes it's just, I don't know, fate, something, that happens. My son moved to Kelowna maybe 5 years ago. My eldest son, Carlos. And we came to visit him a couple of years later. We spent Christmas here. And we loved it. He was living in Lake Country at the moment. And we said, okay, you know what? We are going to move here. I just said, this is the place where I want my family to be, my kids, And I wanted my 3 kids to be together. Because a family for me is really important. But it was curious because shortly after I arrived, maybe like 1-2 days after, I started looking around the Okanagan. And then I said, oh, I've been here. So when I was pregnant with Carlos, I was about 8 months pregnant. My ex-husband and we did 2 trips. He's a truck driver. Mm-hmm. So we did 2 trips to Vancouver. We stopped everywhere. And out of all the places, for me, the most special and the most beautiful was the Okanagan Valley. I don't remember exactly where we stopped, but we stopped to have a bite. We talked to certain people. I found people to be so friendly. And then I said, you know what? I was pregnant with you, and now you live here, and now we're going to move here. So that's why I said it's kind of sometimes a circle. Something happens for a reason. Mm-hmm. So that was it,
Yeah.
Went to Montreal, did everything to sell my house, prepare for the move, and that's it.
Wonderful. So when you say last December, I think you mean 2016. I think you've been here
Yes,
about a year and a half
exactly.
now.
Not last December, the year, like 2 years ago almost, yeah.
And how do you like it so far? Are you glad that you moved here?
Oh, yes. I think it is. I'm more than glad. I'm really happy that we moved here. The moment we entered Kelowna, we drove. Carlos came to get me, and we drove from Montreal to Kelowna. Did the trip in 3 days, and it was maybe 3-4 o'clock in the morning. We arrived in West Kelowna, and at that moment I said, this is home, something that never happened when I arrived in Montreal. It took me a long time to feel at home. Yeah. So, no, I love, apart from the natural beauty, because it is, paradise is really spectacular, I find people to be warm, welcoming, friendly. I've made amazing friends, and I made friends 3 months after I arrived here. Yeah. So it is, society is very different. Values are very different. There is respect for nature, to a certain, maybe not 100%, respect for the animals, for everything. Mm-hmm. So I really, really, it's a simpler life, much simpler than in big cities. Nobody's in a hurry, everybody's happy, nobody's stressed. Yeah. So, no, I love it. Very People nice. Are wonderful here.
You have a beautiful accent. I believe you're from Mexico. Is that right? Tell us a little bit about Mexico. What was it like growing up there? And how old were you when you left Mexico?
I come from Mexico City. Lived there most of my life while I was in Mexico. And things have changed, because of the drug cartels and all that. But back then, it was, beautiful, I felt safe. I would take the bus and everything. I grew up not with my parents. I was raised by my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, and 3 of my aunts. So it's like I've always had 4 mothers. Mm-hmm. I was happy, I have to say it, I was spoiled with my grandparents, my aunts, and I had a wonderful life. Life was nice, safe. And then my parents lived in another city. I would see them every time I had a vacation or Christmas, whatever. I come from a large family. And we are all very close. We're like 45 cousins, you know.
Wow.
And so eventually my parents, I moved back with my parents. And then when I was at university, they moved to Acapulco. And there, I grew up vacationing in Acapulco. For me, if you ask me a place to go in Mexico, for me, next, like close to my heart, is Acapulco. It's like weather, everything, you know. People, like, they're happy. They're always in a party mood. So I used to travel there all the time, you know, back and forth. I spent vacations with them. And then I met my ex-husband. He's Egyptian, Canadian. He was vacationing, a long vacation in Acapulco. We decided to get married shortly, well, I don't know, like a year or something. He came back, and then he went back just to get married. And I finished my bachelor's, and then I was 24 when I moved to Montreal. I had never been to Canada, never experienced winters. So I landed in Canada. In Montreal, it was the beginning of April, and it was really cold.
Right.
No, it was like everything. It was quite a cultural shock for me. I didn't speak the languages. I wasn't prepared for really anything that I had to live there. Yeah.
Wow. So you learned French and English since you moved here. And have you been back to Mexico since?
First, I learned English. It was easier for me. I had a bit of, you know, I had knowledge. I took languages in Mexico, but I couldn't put a phrase together. And then years after, I learned French. And yes, so I've been here in Canada over 30 years. Yes, we moved, well, you know, back and forth vacationing, but I moved back to Mexico on 2 occasions. 2 years after I arrived, I said, no, I just couldn't adapt. I didn't want to adapt, and I moved back to my country. I was there for 3 years, and then I decided to move back to Montreal to just give the marriage a second chance. And then we moved. We spent a couple of winters in Ixtapa, working there. And then we moved eventually when I had my first 2 kids for a year. My dream was to always move back to my country, but then we ended up coming back, and then I said, okay, that's it, you know. So that was it, you know. And I don't go that often anymore. I was there in May to visit my family, and before that, 5 years before that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So, did you go to Mexico City in May when you went?
Yes.
And tell us how it's changed since you were a little girl. What's different about Mexico City? I know it's one of the largest cities on the planet. It's huge. A lot of population. Does it look the same, or has it changed a lot?
No, this time after 5 years, I just couldn't recognize many of the areas, you know, like I would pass and I said, okay, where are we? I couldn't recognize the roads. So it has changed in terms of infrastructure. It has changed tremendously. We have, for example, let's say one of the main highways, it goes from one side of the city to another. So now they added a second floor to the highway.
Wow.
You know, all along. So I went to not just Mexico City, I went to 2 or 3 more cities. Overall, I found everywhere in Mexico it looks run down, you know, like I cannot see that it is very dirty because, well, compared to Canada, yes, you have to always to consider the population is over 20 million in Mexico City, and poverty, you know, like 80% of the population, when I said poor, it's really poor. So it makes a difference. We don't have the resources like we have in here. But so that was sad to see that it hasn't been maintained because it is beautiful, Mexico City. It's rich in culture. I didn't have the chance to go downtown, where you find they say that they have revamped, okay, downtown, and that is beautiful now. But you have the best museums, you have ruins, you have everything. So I didn't have that opportunity, but overall, it isn't safe, and that is incoming. You hear it all the time. Everything that is happening all over Acapulco, for example. So Acapulco is in the state of Guerrero. Over there we have states and not provinces. And now there is a war between the cartels to take over the territory. So it is sad because at noon you go there and you can get killed, I'm not saying that it happens every day, but it's not safe. So it is really sad to see what's happening to my country, to see not only that it's not safe, that now everything is in the hands of the drug cartels because they go to houses and all that, for example, or if you have land, agricultural land, they said, okay, we're going to use it for, for purposes, for the drug to plant pot, marijuana, etc. And if not, either you do it or if not, just will take over. Yeah. And it's so that is extremely sad, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I just don't see a solution to the problem.
So you have a wonderful sense of style. Every time I see you, you're dressed amazingly. And I've seen some photographs of your work, your interior design work and staging and so on. Tell us when you got into that and when you first realized you were going to be a designer.
I don't have a bachelor's in interior design as per se. So I have a bachelor's in design. Back then at university, in Mexico, we didn't have interior design. And when I switched a few times, we're not going to talk about it. I did like 3 years of something different, dentistry, this and that, and then I went into design. When did I realize? I think that, I was 2 years and a half into dentistry. I was doing already clinics, and I just hated it. Why? Because I just couldn't see people suffering. People don't like going to dentists. And then I said, I don't want to be doing this. And I went to talk to people at university, and I decided that I wanted to be in design. I love creating. I love everything that has to do with art and architecture and everything. So I switched careers, and then I moved to Canada. I couldn't work as a designer, and so I did other things, office work, all types of things, babysitting. And when I moved back to Mexico 2 years after, I opened a small business, and I did it for about 3 years, the 3 years that I was there almost. I was also working at the company, etc. And I moved back to Canada, and again, the same. I was pregnant at, shortly after. So eventually we moved to Mexico when my kids were tiny. And I said, okay, I knew what it meant to be a designer. I used to work when I had my business 14 hours a day, 15 hours a day, because of, okay, it's always for yesterday, the project. And I didn't want that for my kids. I wanted to spend time at home with them. So I said, let me teach. I can teach design or something art related. But they didn't have the position. It was already filled. And they said, do you speak, the interview was in English, and I said, yes, okay. They said, okay, so you're going to teach English. So I became a teacher because of that. I had to go and take a certificate and all that before starting. So I became a teacher, like language instructor, at different levels in Mexico. And I had a wonderful experience. I was tutoring, working at the school, university. And I liked it very much. It allowed me to be with my kids. We moved back to Canada, and I got a job teaching at the private institute, and then I started teaching continuous education, etc. And eventually, because I did it for about 20 years, eventually I said, you know what, let me go and do a master's in education. And I didn't finish my master's, but I did it in French, because one of my goals was to really improve my French, which was, like, ask me, it was so difficult, discouraging, like writing in French and all that. But it was, like, I reached my goal of improving my French, and for personal circumstances, I didn't finish my master. I did like 3/4 of it, but I was happy. It wasn't about having a paper. It was really just learning, being involved, and I knew really everything that they taught me. I had been teaching for such a long time. So, and then at the end, like, of my stay in Mexico, not then, like the last 2-3 years, something like that, I really started missing design, and I started helping friends, with renovations, this and that, and then I started working with a realtor from Sotheby's. She gave me the opportunity. Amazing. Her name is Cassandra.
In which city was this?
In Montreal.
In Montreal,
Yeah. She gave me the opportunity. She says, you know what? I want you to be part of my team of stagers. So she says, you have everything I need. You don't need to take training, nothing. And whatever, we'll do it on the field, So I work with her for a bit over 6 months. And then I moved here. And I talked to her about it, and she says, you're great and all that. She gave me really positive input. And I moved here, and I said, okay, let's open a business. So I opened, like a little company, and then I started, and I was lucky. I came across a few months after, I met somebody at a networking event, and she became, Delia is her name. She became first my client, or our client, my sons and I. And while we were working at her house, she became my best friend,
Yeah.
And then we were introduced to other people, and like it's a struggle in many ways.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
Right.
Yes.
Luke Menkes is a realtor with RE/MAX Kelowna. He loves what he does. We asked Luke if he had any regrets about moving here in 2011, and he always says, yeah, one regret, and that is he didn't move here sooner. When Luke came here, he didn't know anyone. He didn't know the neighborhoods or anything or anyone besides his daughter, who was 6 years old at the time. So he knows what it's like. Now, he's an expert and has helped well over 100 single people, couples, families, and investors with their real estate needs in the Okanagan. If you're new to our beautiful city, Luke can help you get connected with great lawyers, dentists, carpenters, landscapers, swimming pool installers, you name it. And whether you're new to Kelowna or not, Luke knows real estate. He can help you find a great property, negotiate a good deal, and hold your hand all the way through the process until the day you get your shiny new set of keys. Luke is known as a no-pressure kind of guy. He's had clients where it took even a year or more to get them into a property. He just doesn't believe in rushing things. On the other hand, when you decide it's time to act, he's diligent, and he'll work day and night until the job is done. Give Luke Menkes a call or a text message at any time, 778-215-4273. Again, that's 778-215-4273, 778-215-4273, to chat with Luke about real estate.
I've seen the work that you did at Delia's house. She is a wonderful person, and you completely transformed that house. It was beautiful before, but it's very different now, and it's amazing. So, I can say firsthand you did amazing work there. So what's the name of your company, and are you busy right now, or can you use some more clients?
The name of our company is Zaga Home Decor and Staging. So we can do interior design, remodeling, like that is something I love, kitchens and bathrooms. staging of vacant properties or occupied properties, redecor, etc. So last year we had the opportunity to do a few stagings of occupied properties. But it was not your regular staging. You saw it with Delia, it was from this painting the whole house, transforming really a place. And then we also did the redecor of some of the living spaces at another client. We had to buy some furniture, lighting, etc. And right now we are working. We're lucky. We teamed up with a realtor from Engels and Volkerman.
Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
I think that's the way you pronounce it. Engels and Volkerman. Volkerman.
Right.
Okay, his name is Manny, and we're going to be doing a brand new property that is about. They just have to finish it. Mm-hmm. So this will happen in a week or 2 weeks. So that's the first one, and there are a few other to come that are being built. We're also working with the builder now. Mm-hmm. We're working like in all the finishes from flooring, tiles, etc. for the second property that is being built, not the one that we're going to be staging.
Right.
And we have one staging coming in August, and we're not busiest per se, and we can take many clients. That is for sure. But we're getting there, So we're just getting to the place where teaming up with somebody, for us it was important. Mm-hmm. And we'll see. We also work a little bit with another realtor, in just choosing some furnishings, etc.
You say we. Is it you and your son?
Yes, it's my son Carlos and I.
And does Carlos do the exact same thing as you do, or does he do something different?
Okay, so we work together like I'm the head designer, to put it a title. He has another job, a full-time position, but after work and on weekends and whenever is necessary, he takes a day off here and there. So I'm the head designer, but we consult in everything. He's more like, I would say, more like into the marketing part, the PR, public relationships, So when negotiating sometimes a contract, he's the one that's more his strength than mine. And but we take the decisions together in terms of furnishings, lighting and all that. I always consult him, I go, I pick, I prepare boards, everything. Yep. And he takes a look, and sometimes he's okay, and sometimes he says, no, this is not the best. And we talk, we discuss, and then we agree. Two people work better than one. Yes. I've always said that.
Right. Have you always worked with Carlos, or is it the last year and a half since you've been in Kelowna?
No, it is just the last year and a half.
Yeah.
Since I've been in Kelowna. So Carlos doesn't have the background, but I always said, yes, it is important to have. You have to have knowledge, especially when you're talking about remodeling a place, for example. Mm-hmm. But it is also, sometimes you have it, you have the taste, you have the vision, or you don't. When he was little, and all throughout until he was a teenager, he wanted to be an architect.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's curious. And I always bought Lego for my kids. I found it in terms, it's great, Yeah. I guess all parents know that having Lego around is great for your kids, for their development. And he was amazing at building things. It was not just your regular things. He would build everything. Unfortunately, I never took pictures of all his creations, because he was really creative. And then eventually, he changed his mind, and he didn't go into university. You never know, maybe one day he'll decide or not.
Right.
But so that's it. And I always wanted my kids, when I moved here, I wanted to have a family business. For me, having my kids together, understanding the value of a family, of helping each other, in all the senses, financially if necessary, morally, emotionally, in every sense. For me, it's important that my kids learn that. And I always say, let's open a business together. They have been in the restaurant business, the three of them, although my youngest is not there anymore and Carlos neither. My daughter is still there. I said, let's open something. Let's open maybe a small restaurant. They didn't want. Right. Although they have experience, from management to everything. I said, you have all the necessary skills, but no, they didn't want that. Right. So we said, okay, I started going the last 2 years, helping friends, etc. I evolved, and I said, okay, you know what? This is what we're going to do.
I think that's a wonderful thing, because I love my work and I love my family, and if you can do both at the same time, spend time with your family and do something together, that's wonderful. My daughters are still quite young, but are there any challenges from working with family? Like, what happens if you have a disagreement? It's a little different than if you're working with a stranger. Exactly. Right?
Yes, and it's been challenging in many ways. We all have our temper.
Right.
Yeah, I would say Carlos more than me, my son, because of age, with age, you mellow down and you learn what's important in life. So yes, we have had disagreements, and we have also learned to try to be, sometimes you say, okay, whatever is going on, we have to leave it at home. Because sometimes we carry the disagreements, or sometimes, at first it was, okay, we had two different opinions in regards to staging a specific area, and we would make it balanced, So sometimes we would say, okay, we're going to do here what you say, but it was just not complete different,
Right.
And on that other room, we're going to go with my opinion. That was at first. But we have now, I think, gotten to know each other at that level, and I have much more respect for him, and he has much more respect for me. So we talk about it before having the disagreement.
Right.
And then we said, yes, this is what we're going to do. So now it's, problems that stay at home. So now we work well together now. Very nice. But it was difficult at first. The first contracts, yes. Sometimes it was difficult.
Tell us what you love most about your design work. What is the thing that excites you?
The creative process it's incredible. I love the process. But I love transforming a space. When we go into space and we see it, and then we see all the potential, and that the place can look either for staging, redesign, whatever, that you can make the place look beautiful, and the people who lives in the space can get to enjoy it, because a space is for me, a home is like a temple, so it's a place where you go, and it has to reflect your personality, because that's what we try to do. It's not just, the staging is a bit different, because it is for selling purposes, but you have to be comfortable. You have to enter your house and say, I love it. And so that part, I can say that when we see clients saying, oh my God, I love the house, and they keep on loving it day after day, that is extremely rewarding for me. I cannot just design for me and say, okay, it's beautiful, if the client doesn't enjoy it that much. And sometimes it's difficult to create also a balance on what the client wants and what you think will be best. Sometimes it takes convincing.
Yes.
Because it's not about just going with what the client, you have to please the client, but you have to also make a client understand that, for example, a specific lighting is not going to do anything for the space. Not just the looks, but in terms of function also, because there are so many aspects. It's not just the visual part, that is very important, but it's the functionality of the design.
Yes.
That is important. And, like sometimes it's also the respect for the architecture. Depends, there are so many factors that have to be taken into consideration.
Gabriela, I want to put you on the spot. I want to put you on the spot. Can you think of someone in Kelowna that you think is a fascinating person and you would love to see come on this show in the future?
There are a couple of people I can think of. Okay, Delia, you've met her, you know her.
Yes.
Okay, she is. I think she's fascinating. She's interesting. She has a business, or a few businesses.
Yeah.
She's hardworking. So her experience from mine is very different because Kelowna nowadays is not the same as the Kelowna of 5 years ago or 6 or 10 years ago, So it's a different point of view. So her and maybe Brent, her husband, another person I can think of would be Teresa May. Also.
Right.
Okay, she's also done so many other things in her life. She was working at Highlight.
Right.
Okay, and now she's working at Cherry Lane Homes.
Do you have a website where people can see your work and contact you if they're interested in your services?
Yes. So the website is Zaga, Zaga, Home Decor Staging.
Gabriela, thank you so much for your time today. It was a great conversation, as always, and I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much. And if I have the opportunity to come back, maybe with my son, then maybe you can say a little bit about your experience here.
Perfect.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you so much, Luke. Have a wonderful day.